Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Film Root Podcast. This is episode 8. I'm your host, Joe Baress, along with co-host Joby Fawcett. Joby, how are we doing this Monday afternoon?
Joe, we're still trying to recover from what was an extremely busy weekend of coverage in the high school football world. But it is Monday, and we're ready to start a new week.
Absolutely. Let's start off our podcast throwing it to our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week, Abington Heights golfer Cade Kelleher. Cade, how we doing, man?
Good. Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining the show. I will give a rundown of what Cade did to earn our Athlete of the Week award. He won the District 2 Class 3A individual golf title, shooting a 2/74 on last Monday at Elkview Country Club. The Abington Heights also captured the Lackawanna League Class 3A title and also the District 2 Class 3A title as Cade shot 2/73 at Fox Hill Country Club to earn medalist honors and lead the way. Cade, I'm just going to start off by asking you, what it's like. Obviously, you and Scranton Prep have very deep teams. What is it like being on such a great team, 1 through 5, 1 through 6 at Abington Heights?
Yeah, so I've actually had the honor and privilege of even starting off as a freshman, never, being on a bad team. I mean, going into even freshman year, it was the state qualifiers from the year before. So there was always just a lot of depth to our team, and us freshmen at the time, now seniors, have always just taken that as the standard. And we all try to be as good as we can and try to be the best team that Abington's ever seen every year.
Cade, I have to ask you because I used to golf many years ago as just a hobby and was probably one of the 10 to 20 worst golfers in the history of Pennsylvania. But what age did you kind of get started with playing golf competitively, and how have you seen your game evolve through the years?
Yeah, so actually, funny story. When I started obviously playing at a very, very young age, but I swapped from lefty to right-handed when I was 10, so my father could help me out. And I probably started playing I think I played in my first tournament when I was 13. And, it's just, even from then, like when I was 13, 14, it was just something fun to do and always trying to go out and win, even if it's the smallest thing. But I got real competitive in tournaments in around the summer going into my freshman year, where I started going around PA, New Jersey to play in different series and different events to, make a name and try to build a roster for myself. And over the years, it's definitely been a full calendar in the summer of tournaments that mean a lot to me, and just the name that they have and what they could do for a junior golfer that's trying to pursue a career post high school. And I've definitely seen a lot of improvements, a lot of better scores over the years, and it's awesome. Yeah.
Cade, let me go back to something you said. You said you used to golf lefty, but then changed to righty. Is that right?
Yes.
How does that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, from the age, like up to the age of 10, I was just going out and, playing with my brothers and just screwing around really. And I wanted to get better because obviously if you guys, my oldest brother and my cousin Connor Kelleher, my oldest brother, and my cousin Troy Kelleher, they were playing on the Abington golf team when I was around this age, and their team was very successful and they were going out and doing all this. And I said to my dad, Dad, like, I want to do this when I'm older too. And he said, well, I could barely help you lefty. You'd have to switch to righty for me to really help you. And yeah, I made the switch, and it was really just trying to follow the footsteps of my brother and do what he was doing, which I am now, which is awesome to say.
Absolutely. Cade, listen, congratulations on what has been a fantastic career for you as a golfer. Now, you have to, as you mentioned, you play a very tight schedule over the summer, but you have to log a lot of time, I would imagine, practicing and working on your swing. Kind of tell everybody what it entails to really develop and become a championship level golfer at your age.
A few big things are just realizing the importance of a good short game and just knowing that you shouldn't just be a range rat and be hitting ball 24/7, not like seeing how many balls you could hit within 60 seconds, having no thoughts. And even when you do go to the range, just take your time hitting balls, hit a ball a minute and just think of your swing. And even just on-course work is so important to drop 3 balls down around a green in different spots for 6 holes and play everything as a part 2 and see what you shoot. Just little almost games you can play with yourself on the course to just make sure that everything's sound. And I mean, you just keep doing that and you'll see it happen and transition into your actual golf game in a serious event.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off that, I know when I golf, I think it's funny. Me and Joby are apparently getting golf tips from you today, so we appreciate it. But so I find the most difficult part of the game is, number one, you could go out and have a great day, and then like the next day for some reason you look like you've never, I'm not saying you specifically, but golfers just look like they've never picked up a club before. And I just think the mental game is so much maybe more important in golf, especially because it's just you out there. So how do you stay focused? How do you flush a bad shot and kind of stay focused and stay ahead in the mental game?
Yeah. So this is actually something that my mom's been telling me for a while, and it's really helped me over the years. It's never to look in the rear view menu. It's the rear view mirror is always smaller than the window ahead of you. So I always just try to never look out the rear view mirror and just keep looking forward. After I have a bad hole or a bad shot, just remind myself and tell myself that I have a lot of golf to play, a lot of shots to hit, and I could produce some good shots and good holes.
Cade Kelleher joining us here. He is our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week, and certainly well-deserved after a championship week for the Abington Heights golf team. And Cade, being a member of the Abington Heights golf team is very prestigious, okay? And your team has been so great all season, and it's almost expected every fall when we get into the sports season. Having that internal level of competition where I think you went 5-6 deep, taking the top 5 or 6 places in the individual qualifier for district championships and finished it in that way. How does that help shape your game as well, having such great competition within your group that you can both practice with and play against on a day-to-day basis?
That's a great question. I mean, it's awesome because not only are we all obviously friendly, competitive with each other, but we're great friends at the end of the day. And just all of us together, the knowledge that we have about the game, it just really helps one another to get better. If we're seeing one of our teammates in a rough spot of their game, all of us will be there to help them and, make sure that it's there for when we need it most. And I just think that where our team is and how we are mentally and how close we are, it really just makes the journey better and our scores even better.
Absolutely. Cade, you obviously have the postseason coming up, more postseason with states coming up and everything. How do you prepare for states and, especially with all the factors? Obviously it's getting colder now. What is your preparation like at this point in the season?
Yeah, I'm glad you said it and mentioned the fact that it's getting colder now. That's actually one of the biggest things that I do. If I'm not busy for a day and I see that, it's real windy and cold outside, I'll take that as a chance to go practice, and not the nicest conditions, because at states down at Penn State that are late in the year, you never know what weather is going to get thrown at you. So it's always good to get some practice in the real cold stuff with a few more layers on. And just even that little stuff that may not seem like a lot, it really does make a difference in your game and how you perform.
Cade, for all the work that you put in during the course of your career, the preseason, and of course in season, what did it mean to you to achieve being a district champion? I know that's, this is a type of sport. You keep mentioning team, and we have mentioned a couple of times how great the Abington Heights team is, but ultimately golf is focused on being an individual in a sport, in a team setting. To be that champion, what does that mean to you?
I mean, it's one of the biggest honors you could really think of as a high schooler. It's something that for the past however many years, it's something that I've wanted to do and that I've had on my bucket list. And I'm so happy to, be able to call myself that. It's a true honor.
Definitely. Cade, obviously you spent a lot of time in preparation golf. Who are some of the golfers that you admire?
Yes, it's funny you say that as well, because my dad helps me all the time, and whenever we're working on something, I'll get a notification that he sent me a swing of Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods, showing a video of their swing, saying that that's a good thing that they do. We should try to work on that. And just those two guys, Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods, have some of the greatest golf games in swings I've seen in my life. So those are some guys that, even how they act on the course and how they act to fans, and also their golf game, it's truly like someone to look up to.
Cade, one last thing for me. I'm more of a miniature golfer. Okay. I like the local putt-putt courses that we have around here. And would you ever be tempted to kind of go to some of these local putt-putt courses and kind of play, a round of golf with, say, an old guy who can't really score even on the putt-putt courses? Would you do that for a fellow person who wants to learn the game?
Yeah, for sure I would. I just have to make sure though that they're not catching up to me in the score, because then I may have to stop helping them and try to take the game over.
I just want you to know, if I had to qualify myself, I am ranked quite high in the mini golf rankings in Northeast Pennsylvania. So beware. That's all I'm going to mention.
Whatever day you want to do it, I may be busy then. So
listen, we may have to put this together, Joe. You'll have to come with a video camera and watch me put on a putting clinic.
This would be amazing. Oh man, that would go viral. So, Cade, the one last thing I want to ask you, you mentioned, the junior golf circuit and, you pursuing would you like to pursue a career in golf? What is your ultimate goal moving forward?
Yeah, I would love to pursue a career for the next 4 years. Just looking at how much progress I've made in the past 4 years, just knowing that I could have another 4 years to excel in my game. I truly don't know where it could take me, but I really would like to find out. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in doing so, and I just have to see what happens and trust the process.
Absolutely. Cade, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be contacting you about that mini golf contest with Joby, but until then, thanks so much for joining us. We really, really appreciate it, and good luck moving forward.
Congratulations, Cade, and all kidding aside, listen, it's a great accomplishment to be the District 2 champion. I know you'll represent the area quite well at states, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys for having me on. It was a great podcast that you guys got going.
Thanks, Cade. Appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good one.
Have a good night, guys.
You too.
You too.
All right.
Joe, has to be, I'm telling you, I have been known to be a little bit of a I kind of lay in wait, and I can putt the game. I can make the putts at the mini golf course.
Joby,
I can time up that windmill perfectly.
Joby, I need to see this. We need to make this happen. We brought up mini golf a lot on this podcast. I think we should go to, let's go to Leahy. Let's do the circuit. Let's do this. It's great.
Right, listen to me.
Great time in October to think of it, but no, continue.
Great story. One time I was at the beach with the family in Delaware, and one of the nights out, we went to the mini golf course there, and you can ask my daughters or anybody who you can maybe identify from that golf course, the competitiveness that I still have at this very old age is not something that I'm very proud of, certainly in public. And we went back and my kids beat me, okay? But I insisted I went back and I had to look at the scorecard thinking that there was an error made somewhere. That's how bad I was.
You got when you sign the scorecard, it better be right or you're disqualified.
Oh, my kids get a charge out of how upset I was and how angry I was that I had lost.
Oh God, that's amazing.
It was fun.
That's
no,
amazing.
Listen, Cade's a terrific golfer, and we've talked about this a couple of times on the podcast. The golfers at Abington Heights and Scranton Prep have a lot to be proud of this year. They were dominant last week, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. Seriously. And just a quick story for me as well. I've got this friend who's, he's in like year 2 of trying to golf. Now I can't imagine picking up golf at this age. I'm not even good now, but it's just funny because, I try to preach like, focus up, stay focused, don't get aggravated, whatever. It's just golf. We're not pros. And then I'll hit my shot and then I'll say things, things that I can't say on this podcast and lose my head. So it's a hard sport. So it just kind of makes it all, it's just so impressive. Like you said, what these golfers are doing at Abington, Scranton Prep, and, honestly, across the Lackawanna League, it's been pretty great. Speaking of Scranton Prep, golfer Cole Powell had a nice week for himself as well. He shot an even par 71 at Fox Hill Country Club to lead Scranton Prep to the District 2 Class 2A title over Wyoming Seminary. Also shot an even par 72 to earn medalist honors and helped the Cavaliers capture the Class 2A Lackawanna League title over Riverside. Kind of an interesting thing about the District 2 championship match against Wyoming Seminary. He beat Nick Werner by, I believe, 6 strokes. An off day for Werner, who's probably the best golfer in the area. But that's just anytime you beat Nick Werner, it's a big deal. So a great week for him.
Yeah, great job by all the golfers. Really, Joe, as you mentioned, and now we're moving into some real big competitions, and the weather is going to change, Joe.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be a new challenge in and of itself, as Cade spoke about. Another accomplishment, a milestone that I'd like to touch on. North Pocono boys soccer coach Graig Arcurie won his 100th career soccer match when North Pocono beat Delaware Valley 8-1 on Wednesday night. So congratulations.
Real quickly, Graig's a great ambassador for the sport as well.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. So it's great to see him get a milestone for someone who is a great ambassador for the sport. But Joby, I want to yield the floor to you because I'm sure you have a lot to talk about as far as the tennis postseason. So what do we have to look ahead to here?
Okay, Joe, we have a lot on the tennis court here coming up in the next couple of weeks. As you know, this is a very busy time of the year as the girls tennis beat writer. We've got the team semifinals and finals on Tuesday this week at Kirby Park. Looks like the weather is going to be quite nice for that competition, which is always intriguing because as one reporter covering the event, there are 10 matches going on at one time during the semifinals. So I don't know how people expect me to be at all 10 courts, but I try to wander around. But for the most part, Joe, I'm camped out with Mike Agnosti, District 2 tennis chairperson, for the entire day tomorrow. And then we've got the singles semifinal, or the first 3 rounds are later in the week, with the semifinals and finals being the following week on Tuesday. And then we get right into doubles. So it's really 2.5 weeks of really intense championship level tennis. And I will be taking a lot of trips to Wilkes-Barre in the next couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Joby, just one thing, at least I wanted to point out from last week that I found really interesting. Obviously, you know how good Cara Evans is.
Yes.
But in a match against Wyoming Seminary, Cara Evans took on 2-time state champion Alana Rosenthal, and that match ended up being halted because Wyoming Seminary won it. But Cara Evans, I believe, Joby, was up 5-3 in the first set against Alana Rosenthal. So to me, that was pretty eye opening. I mean, you've written stories about her and everything, but this was just seemed like, and granted, like that match didn't end, but that's Alana Rosenthal doesn't let people even win games, let alone, take leads on her. So, I just thought that was really impressive from this week.
Joe, one thing, being the high school tennis beat writer here in Northeast Pennsylvania, I have the unique privilege of covering probably the best girls tennis players in singles in the state. And it's been that way now for about 10 years. Here, we did have a state champion in Carissa Gigerelli a couple of years ago. We had Abington Heights' Bellis Peters, who was really, if Carissa Gigerelli wasn't around and they were the exact same years, she would have been, had a resume that was so impressive. She'd have probably been a 3 or 4 time player of the year as well. And now we've kind of had the torch passed down. Alana Rosenthal, 2-time state champion. Cara Evans, last year, Joe, made it to the District 2 Class 2A final, and Alana beat her, so only one goes to the state championship. But you could argue that we have the top 2 singles players in Class 2A in the state, and that was proven out to be where we may even have the top 3 singles players in the state, not 4, because Lily Langell from Scranton Prep is the number 1 singles player on that team. Alyssa Wigley is the number 2 player at Scranton Prep this year, but she had been the number 1 player. And Emma Cuck, of course, with Scranton Prep and playing at number 3 singles. Those 3 girls did not lose in the state team championship last year in singles competition. So the tennis in District 2, especially in the Class 2A, is just amazing here. And all of these athletes are superior. They are fantastic tennis players. They've all put in a lot of time at their local racket clubs or during private lessons. And look, Joe, it may be a preview of coming attractions. I don't know. But if Cara Evans and Alana Rosenthal play again, it will be a very intense District 2 Class 2A final. And again, I would argue those 2 players probably both deserve to go to the state tournament regardless of the outcome of that match. But we do only get one.
Right. So that's just, we'll keep an eye on that, but you guys should keep an eye on that. We got immense tennis talent here in District 2. All right, Joby, anything else from last week, and then we'll get into football that you wanted to touch on?
Well, Joe, the only thing I wanted to touch on here before we get too far into the football season is we have a huge Lackawanna League girls volleyball match coming up this week. Western Wayne will play at North Pocono on Wednesday. I'll be at that match just to kind of catch it on live and in person. Obviously, some of the factors in our job have changed a little bit. So, we're not going to get some live coverage out of that, but I'm going to be there anyway on site. Should be a really good match between the top 2 teams in the Lackawanna League. Interesting side note here, Joe. We know already the talent at Western Wayne. How fantastic that they have been all year with Lauren Beamer and Reagan Palmer. We've chatted, of course, with Reagan Palmer, a past athlete of the week here on the Film Room podcast. North Pocono, Mia Suma had reached a milestone earlier this year. We did a nice profile on her as well and the family connection she's had to the sport of volleyball with her dad, Chris Suma. But she's been out of action for the last couple of matches. I know you've been paying close attention to that, Joe. Yeah. And it has affected and impacted North Pocono. North Pocono is still an extremely talented team with outstanding players and veteran players. So even if Mia's not 100% for Wednesday, which all indications are that she's going to be, that should be a heck of a match between North Pocono and Western Wayne on Wednesday.
Definitely. Joby, I'm glad you brought that up because I had it on my little Google Doc here, but all the way down the bottom. So that's my fault there, Joby. So I'm glad that you brought that up. That should be an interesting, very interesting volleyball match to keep an eye on. But all right, Joby. So this is,
it's our time now, Joe, to get into this.
It's our time. That's right. And so last week in high school football, it was an interesting one. What was that? Week 7?
It was week 7, Joe. Believe it or not, we're in the final third of the season.
My goodness. So, let's start with your game.
Well, what do you mean my game, Joe? I had 3.
Sorry. I was going to let you pick. No, let's start with start with Scranton Prep, Abington Heights, which was the game of the week that you had on the schedule. And it turned out to be a pretty good one. Scranton Prep 27, Abington Heights 21. Lewis Baress had 110 yards rushing and a touchdown on 8 carries. He added 9 of 13 passing for 123 yards. He had an interception. Will McPartland, 96 yards and 3 touchdowns on 16 carries. Also 3 catches for 49 yards. Impressive numbers for Abington. Once again, Nick Bradley, 13 of 20 passing for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns. And receiver Gavin Anders had 7 catches for 68 yards and 2 touchdowns. Joey, what'd you take away from this game?
All right, Joe, first of all, I want to tell you a quick story, okay? Mm-hmm. Because I think we mentioned when we previewed this game, and I certainly did in Game Face on Friday, that this is a rivalry game, okay? Scranton Prep and Abington Heights in the fall sports season, and it carries over to the winter in basketball and certainly into the spring sports with baseball and softball and boys tennis and the lacrosse now has evolved. These are 2 rival schools, okay? And Joe, I know you don't realize that I used to be an athlete a long, long time ago, but I had been involved in what I like to classify as one of the 5 most intense football rivalries in Northeast Pennsylvania. And if someone would like to debate me on that, that's okay. I mean, of course, we have, the Old Forge Riverside people will talk about the Triborough rivalry and this Scranton Prep Abington Heights rivalry, the West Scranton battle for the bell. But when I was growing up in school, John, you don't see this too much anymore. The matchup isn't on the schedule anymore, but Lakeland's rival was Valley View. Okay. And you used to be able to gauge, and anybody who played at those 2 schools in the 80s, the 1980 to 1988 or 89 would tell you the outcome of that game used to be able to give you a pretty good indication of how good a team you were or how far you could go in the playoffs. And if we were ever to speak to head coach Frank Pizzalia from Valley View, he would tell you the same thing. So my junior year, we played Valley View for the Big 11 football championship, and we lost. Okay. And it was at Valley View. And anybody who played in that era will tell you that the scene was very, very eerie. The Valley View fans were so passionate back in the day. And at the end of the game, as the clock is winding down, the fans are going crazy and they're chanting Valley View in unison. You know how those rhythmic go, Joe. And our head coach at the time, Dan Case, came running down the sideline, and he had kind of cornered our quarterback, Paul Pigeon, fullback, Ed Dokulovich, and myself. And we were all juniors at the time, and we were very dejected and very emotional. And you would never see us after a game getting pictures with family and friends after a game, a loss of that magnitude. So he came over, and Coach Dan Case was about as mild-mannered as Clark Kent. Okay. And he played at Valley View, and he had this look of intensity in his eyes. And he said, look right in our face masks, don't you 3 ever forget the feeling you have right now as their fans are chanting. And I'll tell you, Joe, that carried the 3 of us and certainly the entire football team from Lakeland that year through the off season, through the summer. Every workout we had was centered and focused on playing Valley View again in 1987, which was a year after that game had been played. And we knew that we were both going to be good again the following year. And we had such an incredibly intense week of practice leading into that game. And we played probably the best overall football game of our entire careers against Valley View as seniors in 1987. We won that game convincingly, and we just knew that was a game and that was going to catapult us, that nobody, if we had played our best football, nobody could beat us the rest of the year, and nobody did. Okay, all that being said, it's very difficult to quantify or kind of evaluate as you're looking at these matchups what a rivalry game will do to a player mentally and physically. This game was a tough physical battle between 2 bitter rivals, okay? Scranton Prep has been the number 1 team since the preseason, Joe, has the most talent out there on the field, both offensively and defensively, convincingly beat Valley View to start the season, held off Delaware Valley in what was a pretty good matchup there in week 4 and jumped out to a big lead against Abington Heights in this game. And these Abington Heights kids, they battled and they came all the way back. And it was 27-21. Lewis Baress took a quarterback sneak 50 yards, Joe. Not 50 yards straight up the middle. He bounced off a tackle at the point of attack, bounced it out, goes 50 yards for a touchdown. The sideline is going crazy. Anyway, very good football game. Abington Heights had the ball late with a chance to possibly even to tie and win. And Ambrose Rossi rushed to quarterback Nick Bradley late, forced an errant throw on 4th down, and the game was over. But, Joe, this is what I like to see. I like to see this type of level of competition between two teams in the Lackawanna Football Conference. We don't get that necessarily on a weekly basis when we pub up or publicize these big games, these big matchups. But this one certainly lived up to the hype. And I truly believe, Joe, it was because of the intensity of the rivalry and the play of both players on both sides.
Absolutely. I was happy to see this one kind of live up to the billing. Let's go to my game. So I covered the Western Wayne West Scranton game. Western Wayne wins that 42-16. What the takeaway from this, and obviously, we talk about it all the time. Sean Owens is great. He had an interception that stopped a potential touchdown drive. He had a 35-yard touchdown run. He had 5 catches for 112 yards and a touchdown. And obviously you've got Josh Vinton, who had over 100 yards again, a couple touchdowns. But the interesting thing about this and what Western Wayne will need and has been showing this year is, other players to step up and Western Wayne kind of once again proved that they have some other players that make them such a complete football team. One of them is Jack Hubbinger. He had 2 interceptions. He returned 1 for a touchdown, got the game ball from Coach Shane Grodak. You could tell, kind of the respect that the team has for him and his preparation. Vinny Baldini, linebacker, made a great play, forced a fumble and jumped on a fumble recovery as Western Wayne forced 4 turnovers in a stretch of 5 West Scranton possessions. This was obviously just another game to show that Western Wayne is one of the best teams in the area, and they showed it with their depth in a game against West Scranton.
Joe, I'm glad you brought that up. If I could pat you on the back once in a while here, but yeah, look, you can't have a championship level team if you don't have depth and you don't have contributions from everybody across the board. Okay. The one thing I take away from this game is, Joe, we're getting late in the season here. Okay. Now we do not have Western Wayne and Scranton Prep playing each other in the regular season.
Right.
Of course, we have the potential for those two teams to meet in the district playoffs, which we're not rooting certainly for that to happen. But boy, what a great regular season matchup that would be if we had Western Wayne and Scranton Prep on the schedule. I think sometimes, Joe, if you allow me to get on my soapbox a little bit, that's what we miss out on with the divisions here in the Lackawanna Football Conference. Clearly, Scranton Prep belongs in Division I, okay? Right. But it is the only Class 3A team up in Division I. And so it's very hard to kind of match up Scranton Prep with Western Wayne down in Division II. So we don't get that this year in the regular season. But, boy, that would be a heck of a game. And if we're lucky enough, Joe, and these two teams take care of the business that they need to, we are getting a little ahead of ourselves. We do have a lot of football to play yet.
Right.
But, boy, it would be a heck of a game to see these two teams play.
And as you've said in the past, obviously Class 3A, some great football teams. So who knows where we'll get, but these are obviously 1 and 2 in our Times-Tribune poll. Western Wayne's leading the district power rankings right now. And I believe Prep is 3rd in the state and Western Wayne is 5th in the state in Class 3A, Joby. Is that right?
That's correct, Joe.
Okay. So, I mean, like you said, I'm glad you brought it up. I would love to see these two teams face off in the regular season, but if it happens,
let's take it 1 week at a time, Joe.
Right. Exactly. That's it. 1-0, right? 1-0 every week.
That's correct. Yep.
So,
now, Joe,
go ahead.
Before we get to my double header on Saturday that you forced me to cover, I want to say, boy, what an exciting week we had in some of the games that get lost in these big matchups that we had. Lakeland and Honesdale came down to the final seconds, and Dunmore and Mid-Valley both battled to the last seconds. And both games were decided by point after touchdown conversion attempts.
Yeah.
In the Lakeland game, Conlon Keese broke up a pass to deny Lakeland, and Honesdale came away with a 41-40 victory. And Dunmore, which jumped out to a 21-7 lead over Mid-Valley, Xavier Burke with the big block of an extra point to preserve a 21-20 victory for Dunmore. And don't look now, Joe, but the Bucks have won 3 in a row.
Yeah. How about that? Just, Joby, just like last season, Dunmore starting to get their footing at a good time in the season. This was just a great game. There's, as far as the stats, there weren't a ton of stats. I mean, Josh Dudek, 90-yard punt return for a touchdown. Gabe Franek, 42 yards and 2 touchdowns on 13 carries. Mason Vanansky had 167 yards and a touchdown on 31 carries. But, like you said, just a close game, a hard fought game. And yeah, like you said, here comes Dunmore again.
Joe, I'm a little curious now about this Class 2A playoff picture because, clearly Riverside has been dominant. Okay, and Chase Tedonio and Richie Kostoff are putting up incredible career numbers, which you kind of expect in the Harry Armstrong scheme.
Sure.
But, Riverside has been impressive and continues to win by impressive scores. But let's keep in mind, Joe, as this starts to get a little bit closer to the postseason, that Riverside's toughest competition came in week 1 in a 16-6 win over Dunmore. Now, I'm not putting the cart before the horse, and let's not also forget that Riverside and Susquehanna played a game where Riverside won 34-26. So, look, that Class 2A playoff picture, and it kind of brings me to Susquehanna's performance against Old Forge on Saturday, where, again, yes, Weston Unoni had a terrific game. He had 3 touchdowns. But as we get deeper into the season, you always have to worry about the health of players, right? Especially guys in key positions. And Unoni had a 50-yard sprint where he kind of got rolled up on a little bit at the tail end of the play, and he went off the field, hobbled a little bit. Now, Susquehanna was able to respond because William Marcy had a terrific game. I'm not so sure too many high school athletes have ever had 250 yards rushing and no touchdown. But that being said, he was terrific, Joe. He really is a physical football player. He runs hard. He does all the little things you need. He's a special teams player, a terrific kick returner. And this Susquehanna team, if anything, has certainly gained a lot of confidence this year. Remember, Susquehanna has a win over Lakeland, has a win over Dunmore, and now has a win over Old Forge to its credit. So Susquehanna certainly, now they got to get healthy. Weston Unoni has to be healthy late in the season.
Right.
And he was able to return from that ankle injury. He did have one carry late, but you have to be healthy at this time of the year. So that was a pretty good performance by Susquehanna.
Yeah, William Marcy, 256 yards on 29 carries. He had 2 catches for 17, and I think he threw a 17-yard pass, Joby.
He sure did, Joe.
Yeah, so, Weston Unoni, 87 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns on 12 carries, 82 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. And, he had that 17-yard catch. So those, just really impressive season by Susquehanna. But another thing I want to mention in that game, Joby, another week, another Kale Krishnowski kickoff return for a touchdown.
Joe, and teams just keep kicking the ball to him.
Joby, you wrote a whole story about this.
Joe, look, there's always an incredible thing, right? You put a spotlight on a player, and at that point you would think, now I coached football a long time ago.
Yep.
If we just did a cover story on a kid who has returned 4 kickoffs for touchdowns, don't kick to him.
Yeah. It's probably a good idea to not.
Look, to Kale's credit, I mean, it was a squib kick, and it was. Okay. I think Susquehanna's intent was to avoid him picking it up. But
sure,
look, he gets the ball, Joe, and I used to return kicks, and I just didn't have a knack for it. I just wasn't good. I'm not going to lie to anybody. I'd run into players. I would run out of bounds. I just didn't have that instinct because I was a track guy. I was not a football guy. So I didn't really have a lot of the things that you need as a football player to be able to return kickoffs and punts and that sort of thing. And he just has an incredible ability to set up his blocks first. And he hits the accelerator as soon as he sees a seam and he's gone. I mean, again, he's got that quick speed being a 110-meter hurdler. And he's got great vision in the kickoff team. And credit to him, that was a highlight for Old Forge in that game. And, he's had a heck of a season.
Yeah, seriously. Also, Joby, I know you mentioned it, but I'm sorry. Let me just go back to, let me just read off some stats of this Honesdale-Lakeland. Honesdale winning 41-4.
Numbers are
Lakeland. The numbers are incredible, even in Lakeland's side. I'll start with Honesdale. Like you mentioned, Conlon Keith had 3 catches for 89 yards, including the go-ahead touchdown. And then, like you said, knocked down the 2-point conversion pass to preserve the victory for Honesdale. Mason Avery, obviously great wrestler as well, but great football player, had 220 yards and 3 touchdowns on 16 carries, added 3 catches for 35 yards and a touchdown. But on Lakeland's side, maybe the statistical game of the week, David Nanowitz, 164 yards and 2 touchdowns on 18 carries, 18 for 26 passing for 226 yards and 4 touchdowns. He accounted for 6 touchdowns in this game. I mean, that is just a massive number. And Gavin Roberts had 7 catches for 99 yards and 3 touchdowns. But just, there are certain games that unfortunately maybe get overlooked because they're between 2 non-ranked teams. But this game was obviously pretty incredible.
The numbers speak for themselves, Joe. Young David Nanowitz, he's a kid who played as a freshman as a backup to Domenico Spatero. He's still trying to get his legs underneath him as a quarterback. He's really an outstanding defensive player, the defensive end position. Really coming of age here in the last couple of weeks. I know I had covered the Lakeland Susquehanna game, and he was very dejected on the bench after the game, after the loss, and he has really responded with 2 terrific games back to back. And that's got to be one of the best individual performances for a school and a program that has a very rich history. And just a quick side note, Joe, you don't know this because you're much too young. David Nanowitz's father had probably one of the hardest hits as a member of the Lakeland Chiefs back in 1987, where he absolutely came unblocked and had a quarterback sack. The hit would have been flagged for 15 yards in this era of football, but it was really a key play in the 1987 Eastern Conference Class A championship victory for the Lakeland Chiefs over Tunkhannock. And I know Gary Brennan, who's a friend of mine on Facebook, the quarterback there, he'll tell you the same thing. It was a vicious hit. And young David Nanowitz's dad was a big man. He's 6'3", 200 pounds coming around. But young David's starting to come of age, a terrific performance, and now he's kind of edged himself in the Lakeland history books with that performance. 6 total touchdowns, incredible.
Absolutely. Joby, you mentioned you went to 3 games this weekend, 2 on one day, while writing the first game in between so we could get it in print for our deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Lackawanna Trail wins 39-6 over Carbondale area, but what do you kind of take away from that game?
Couple of things here, Joe. First and foremost, you know how I feel about 7:00 games on a Saturday night, okay?
Exactly.
we won't overemphasize my displeasure with having to cover that game for a couple of reasons. One, I think society doesn't accept it. There are too many other things families do now on a Saturday night.
That's right.
And go to a high school football game, so that tends to impact the crowd. But anyway, there was a circumstance here involving Coach Jeff Arthur's son getting married on Friday, so they had to move the game, and Lackawanna Trail would prefer to play at night, so I respect that decision. That being said, Carbondale area played pretty well early on, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
I was on Lackawanna Trail's sideline, and Coach Steve Jervis and his staff, they don't often get alarmed at a game, at the circumstances of the way things are playing out on the field. But there was some nervous energy on the sideline for Lackawanna Trail, which I hadn't seen in a while. Because first of all, Carbondale area is a big physical football team. Extremely difficult to run the ball against. Okay. I believe, and I could be wrong, Joe, as you know, that Carbondale area is the number one ranked defense in the Lackawanna Football Conference overall. Now, some of that is a product of the opponents that Carbondale area has played, but also it is extremely difficult to run the football against a really massive defensive line. And Lackawanna Trail had some trouble early on. And then that translated to the offensive side of the ball, where Ethan Bruin, a former fullback, went to tailback, and he was ripping off runs, of course, not 10, 12-yard carries, but you're talking 6, 7 yards at a time. And Carbondale area was effective moving the football. And the score didn't indicate it at halftime. It was 18-6, but it was a very competitive game. And leaving the field, the Lackawanna Trail staff was really kind of pepping up the group and saying, hey, listen, we have to get after it here in the second half. And as they came onto the field for the second half, you could see that the coaches had gathered with the front line of Lackawanna Trail, the linemen, and kind of emphasized, listen, we've got to establish ourselves and reclaim the line of scrimmage here if we want to win this football game. And Lackawanna Trail's front line was able to do that in the second half. And I think Carbondale area had negative yards of total offense in the second half. And the running game did get going a little bit for Lackawanna Trail. But it was interesting, Joe. Now, Demetrius Douglas left the game with an injury. Again, you have to stay healthy, especially these small school teams. We talked about it, Joe. Lackawanna Trail, I think, has 28 active players.
Right.
You lose a couple of guys, now you're down to 25, 24 kids. You're kind of really robbing Peter to pay Paul to try to figure out what you're going to do offensively and defensively. But Sean Dwyer came in, gave the team a jolt on a punt return, and then he filled in for Demetrius Douglas, scored a touchdown, and Tyler Jervis had his best game throwing the football and running the ball. And some different guys kind of came through for Lackawanna Trail. And look, the Lions are going to need that moving forward as we get closer to the end of the season. But a very impressive second half for Lackawanna Trail. And Joe, you're just lucky that the college football game of the week, before any of the games were played in the afternoon, ended up being Miami and Cal. And I was able to watch that game in the background.
Good.
While I was writing the game story for Lackawanna Trail and Carbondale area, because I missed Vanderbilt upsetting Alabama, which I wanted to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, yes, thank you for scheduling me to do both games on a Saturday. My day started at 9 a.m. I got done right when Miami was able to win at 2 a.m. in the morning on Saturday.
Well, Joby, there's no one I'd rather do that than you. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you stepping up. Glad that at least you got one college football game in that ended up being an excellent one. Joby, I'm just going to run through a couple other high school football games. Montrose picked up its first win, 13-0 over the Holy Redeemer. Scranton had a nice win over Wallenpaupack, 31-7. Memphis Shadow, 6 catches, 124 yards and a touchdown. Brody Coyle, 12 of 19 passing for 164 yards and a touchdown, adding 41 yards rushing, a touchdown on 8 carries. Valley View beat North Pocono 21-16. Nick Kaharski, 61 yards and a touchdown on 12 carries, 3 catches, 32 yards and a touchdown. And let me just read the numbers as we mentioned earlier. Riverside beats Holy Cross 62-20. Richie Kostoff, 116 yards and 2 touchdowns on 3 carries, 11 catches for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns. Chase Tedonio, 18-25 for 258 yards and 4 touchdowns. Joby, anything else from the week before we look ahead a little bit?
All right, Joe, just real quickly here, Delaware Valley beat Long Island Lutheran in what was probably the signature win for Delaware Valley at this point of the season. Remember I said, Joe, at the beginning of the year, Delaware Valley might be 0-3, even 0-4.
Mm-hmm.
But if you overlook Delaware Valley late in the season, you'll do so at your own peril.
Exactly. What a big win there for Delaware Valley on the road. Very good against an unbeaten Long Island Lutheran.
Joe, an unbeaten team with 3 Division I players.
Yeah.
NCAA Division I players.
Even better. Mike Ialuz. Oh my gosh. Joby. How do I say his last
Joe,
name?
you are butchering his name.
It's a disaster. I'm going to have him on the show just to apologize to him.
Mike Isolino, Joe.
Thank you. I'll get it by the end of the season, I'm sure. He had 68 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. He had 2 2-point conversions and a 98-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in the 40-32 win. So that's another big game for him. And Joby.
Joe, that leads us into the big game for this week with Delaware Valley playing at Valley View.
I was going to say, I love it. That's a big game.
You're not getting that one, Joe.
I know. I wanted that one. And I see a big JOBY next to it. So I guess I'll have to go elsewhere. But Joby, what do we expect from this game?
Well, that's going to be a good one, Joe. Again, I think both of them have their eyes more focused on the postseason now because Scranton Prep with its win over Abington Heights clinched at least a tie for the Division I title in the Lackawanna Football Conference. So the best that anybody can do now is share it with Scranton Prep. We don't play those things off in football, thank goodness. And so I think this is going to be a good game. But again, both teams are preparing more for the long haul here than they are for the short term. But I still think the competitiveness from both teams will produce a pretty decent game.
Absolutely. And there's some.
And Joe, the second game on the schedule that don't think you're going to get some sort of a, Trail is going to host Susquehanna on Friday night if you want that one, Joe.
Yep. I mean, Trail Susquehanna is a good game. I mean, this Scranton North Pocono game I think could be a good one.
Very intriguing, Joe.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good games out there. So we can spread the wealth, Joby. We can spread the wealth.
Scranton Prep playing Mid Valley this week, Joe.
Mid Valley. I mean, there's some very good games on the docket. Joby, as far as Game Face coverage, again, Game Face comes out every Friday, 4-page wrap in the Times-Tribune.
Don't forget too, Joe, we have a Thursday night football this week. Following Pawpack at Abington Heights.
Thursday night tilts. Yep. Pawpack at Abington Heights. So don't forget that one. Joby, what can you tease for us about Game Face?
Well, Joe, it's going to have an outstanding feature, as always. I haven't written it yet because I have other things on my plate right now.
That's right.
The game of the week, of course, will be Delaware Valley and Valley View. We'll have capsules on all the games to get you up to speed. We have a very good notebook going to be in the Times-Tribune this week as well, going to recap some of the history and the relevance of all the things that are being accomplished at Western Wayne. This year, we spotlighted a couple of the players, but the team as a whole is doing some real nice things. And so that's what we had to look forward to, Joe. Another full week of action here. There's also a Saturday matinee this week again. Holy Cross will take on Old Forge in that game. And so we have Thursday, Friday, and Saturday football games in the Lackawanna Football Conference this week.
Exciting week ahead. Joby, so you told me the outcome of our matchup this weekend. Packers, Rams. All right. You told me it was going to happen, but listen, the Rams hung in there. I don't know if it was because of our ineptitude, Jordan Love gifting you guys a touchdown with a pick 6 from the end zone. But yeah, you were right. The Packers came away with the victory, but I don't know. The Rams kind of scared us a bit.
Joe, I thought you were going to let me escape this fabulous hour of sports talk with not having to discuss the plight of the Los Angeles Rams. I do enjoy the NFL rule where there's a 10-second runoff against the offense trying to rally late in the game when the officials make an error. That's always really pleasing to a fan sitting at home wanting to keep himself from throwing something at the television. And look, Matt Stafford did the best he could. Again, the offensive line is coming along a little bit. Some of the guys got back healthy this week. The defense is still unable to tackle anybody in the open field. And yes, the Packers came away with a very hard-fought victory. Congratulations, Joe. It happens every time the Packers play the Rams. I think that's 5 straight now in the series. So it should come as no surprise. And here we are, the Los Angeles Rams, I believe, now well on our way to a top 10 draft pick. Oh, but wait.
you don't value those. You just like the
Well, not only do we don't value them, Joe, we don't have any.
Exactly.
So yeah, look, I've got to get through. The bye week is this week, and I think some of the players are going to get back here shortly, and hopefully the Rams can at least finish 500. That's all I'm hoping.
There you go. Well, we had the Eagles on a bye. The Giants beat the Seahawks, so that's something. The Cowboys beat the Steelers with a late touchdown throw by Dak Prescott. So it was interesting. Penn State won, beat UCLA.
We are, Joe.
We are still undefeated. Number 4 in the country. We don't have to talk about Michigan. That didn't go well.
No.
Yeah, no. I know you didn't get a chance to see it, Joby.
Joe, I would love to discuss college football with you, but I was busy this weekend.
Well, Michigan lost.
It only happened to be the best and most exciting, upset-riddled weekend of college football in the history of the sport.
It was, yes.
And I can't even discuss it with you.
You couldn't do it. Well, we don't have to talk about Michigan. I prefer that, actually. I would probably just prefer to end the show. So
okay, well, Joe, listen, before you do, let's kind of give all of our Penn State listeners out there a lot of hope. You're number 4 right now. You've done everything you can. Just use last weekend as an example when you travel out to USC, because anything can happen on Saturday in college football.
That's right. What a cool matchup, honestly. Even if you're not a fan, that is one of the benefits of USC joining the Big Ten. You get this random, Rose Bowl atmosphere game. So that should be very, very exciting. Me and Rebecca Kivak, speaking of the films, we reviewed the Joker sequel, Joker Folie à Deux. So that is up on our website right now, the Times-Tribune.com/take2. I'd also like to thank Cade Kelleher again, our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week. Absolutely fantastic interview. And he also did an interview with our colleague Sam Freeman, which will be in Tuesday's paper. So check that out, and check all of our stuff out at the Times-Tribune.com/sports. We're ready for another exciting week. Joby, that's all I got. Anything else?
That's it, buddy. Thank you very much. And I will mention this in leaving, Joe. Your French teacher at Holy Cross will be very proud of you.
And I was going to say thank you. Thank you so much. And to that, Joby, we bid adieu.